Written proposals. Some people like them, some people hate them, but what if it's time for them to die? What if this is the death of the written proposal that we're seeing in this day and age? And that's what we're going to be discussing in the fifth proclamation of the Win Without Pitching Manifesto here today. But before we get into that, hey, if you're into branding in the creative industry and you want to amplify your skills, mindset, and remote work lifestyle, then click on that subscribe button, turn on all notifications so you don't miss out. And hey, I'd appreciate a like if you enjoyed the show. I am your host, Steve Reed, and this is Brand or Die. The death of the written proposal. So, I used to be fine with writing proposals. I do proposals all the time. It seemed to make sense. Hey, Steve, what would it cost to do this? How long would it take, and how much is it going to cost? Those are the general questions that people want to know. And they want to have some kind of proposal. A lot of times what we think that means is we need to create something on paper. And so you'll have different proposal templates that you've used over time, right? It's got your logo. It looks all nice. And then there are digital services like Bonsai, many others, I think PandaDocs, all these others that you can write out proposals, really nice looking proposals. And those can take a lot of time to do, especially if there's a tech angle or some other type of high level work that you're doing. You got to sit and figure all that out and do all this work. And then you hand them the proposal. And what happens most of the time is they'll look at the proposal and they may go with you. They're like, okay, great. This is fine. This is what I was looking for. But oftentimes they'll use it as a tool to compare you against other services, which again is fine, right? But what Blair Enns proposes here is really asking yourself, what kind of business do you want to be in? Do you want to be seen as the clear expert in your category? Do you want to have people coming to you because they know right away you're a perfect fit because you've been doing all these things that we've been discussing up to this point? You've positioned yourself, you've articulated your expertise. So what Blair is proposing throughout this whole book is that we place ourselves on a higher level than we have before. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. And it's not just so that this can benefit our business, which is why you would want to read this book and go through all this. You want to have a profitable business. Everybody does. But we also want to provide a high level of value for our clients. We don't want to build good businesses just based on simply raising our prices for no reason and then offering services and just making more money and then moving along the way. We actually want to help people solve problems. We want to deepen our expertise so that we have a unique skill set.
But what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career.
And that way it allows for more healthy competition, because rather than everyone being so general and generic and then all these other companies just diving into this pool of generics, what if the landscape changed to where instead of just a bunch of generic companies, there were a bunch of extremely precise targeted companies, and then those audiences could go to those companies and get specific services to meet their needs. This really makes everyone better off collectively because we're all getting more of what we want. And so that's what we're talking about here. So what do written proposals really have to do with that? That's what we're going to get into today. So first thing we're going to cover is this quote here. It says, "The proposal is the words that come out of our mouths, and that written documentation of these words is a contract, an item that we create only once an agreement has been reached." Pretty simple. Instead of the proposal being the written document, the contract is a written document. The proposal is what we say we're going to do. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, how can I just propose something if I don't know all the answers to these questions? We're going to get into that a little bit, but this is why it's so important to develop that deep expertise, because when you have that expertise and you've solved the same type of problem over and over again for the same type of client, it becomes easier and easier to give verbal proposals. You can say, hey, I know exactly what that's going to cost. I know exactly what it's going to take to do that, right? And it's not always the case. Sometimes there are some other factors that can come into play where you need to do some additional research. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we do that. So the next quote here says, "We will never again ask for documents to propose for us what we ourselves should propose." Again, the proposal comes from us. And I think he really eloquently lays this out in his book. And this is very, very important because we should be able to very clearly articulate what it is that we do. So the goal is to get to the point where we strictly do verbal proposals. If they say, well, can you give me a proposal? We say, yes, this is my proposal. So if they want something to take back to their team or get approval on, I mean, first off, you should be talking to the person who is capable of making this choice, the key stakeholder, the decision maker. That's who you want to talk to. If you're talking to a low-level person and you simply give them this information, like, well, I got to take it to my higher up, then that's where we'd say, well, we need to talk to that person and we'll propose that ourselves. We do not let other people propose our work for us because they're not going to do a good job, right? They're not the experts. And I'm not going to trust the success or failure of the project to some middleman. I propose to the decision maker.
Make me to your leader.
You propose to the decision maker. That's how it works. If we can't do that, then it's not going to be a good fit. We're going to have to move on. That's how we work. And it's important. It's important for the client as well, because let's say we give this detailed information, whether in written form or verbal form or whatever, and then they go and they pitch it and they screw it up because they didn't totally understand what we were saying. That business owner, that decision maker, he may make the wrong choice because he was given bad information. So we cannot allow that to happen. We do our own proposals verbally, face to face, if possible. We're not going to go do all this paperwork and all this research and then give someone a document and then do that all day long, giving out free proposals to people. No, that's not what we're going to do. Again, the document we write is the contract, and it serves as a public verification of an agreement we have already formed with the client in conversation. So whatever we discuss, I throw it in a contract, I send it off, and I say, okay, this is the contract. When you sign the contract, we're engaged to work, and the invoice follows with that as well. So we'll have discussed what the deposit will be on the project, and then we've been formally engaged and we can go ahead and get in there and execute the project. We do not overinvest in the sale. This is a really important part of the book, I think. And here's what he gets into. And so pay attention to this next part. Don't talk the client into hiring you. Some of these sound very counterintuitive if you're a salesperson. Don't talk the client into hiring you. Invite them to say no early and often, right? And proposals are a tool for swaying. And so he likes to avoid swaying or persuading the customer. We don't do that. We want to determine a good fit with the customer. So don't talk the client into hiring you. This is something I've actually done for many, many years. I've never had to pressure a client. Now, in other businesses, if you're a car salesman, you're absolutely talking people into things all day long. That's what you do. In a lot of sales positions, this is what they teach. You're like, you got to get the sale, you got to close them, you got to do these things. In the creative work that I do, I don't sit there and try to convince people hard. When they first contact me, I seek to understand what their problem is and really wrap my mind around what they need. And then in my mind, I'm determining, okay, is this a good fit? Can I actually bring value to the table for this customer? And if I think I can, I verbally propose what it is that we would do. And they either agree or they disagree. Or if they have to think about it and go on, I let them do that. I'll usually give them one follow-up within 48 hours. I'll record a Loom video and shoot it out. And I just do that so they can hear my voice, they can see my face. And I am just going over again what we're doing and saying, if you'd like to proceed forward, we could go from there. And that's about all I do. If they never contact me again or whatever, I just keep doing what I do and another person comes along and another comes along until we get a good fit and then we move forward with them. I don't lose any sleep over the people that don't feel comfortable about moving forward with me. There may be many reasons why they don't move forward with me. Maybe I didn't do a good enough job. Maybe it wasn't a good fit for some other reasons that they may never tell me. But I do think that positioning yourself correctly is what's going to land you the job, not trying to bend someone into something that they don't feel comfortable with.
I honestly don't feel comfortable with that.
Because you don't want to work with a client that's going to resent working with you or that's going to feel like you're manipulating them in some way. And so I don't like to be in those situations. And I'm really glad that Blair in this book hits on these things. In the context of a creative agency, we want good fits. We want to actually help people and solve problems. We want to do what's best for our clients. We want to have great relationships moving forward. And so we can't be just begging the client to work with us all the time. And sometimes you'll have people come to you that are friends or relatives or acquaintances, and somebody says, oh yeah, my buddy does logos, and they'll go, oh, okay, they did a logo. So they'll come to you. And then I have to clarify what it is I actually do and make sure that the reason that they're coming to me fits in line with what they're trying to accomplish, right? So that's really important. So the next statement here, for if the client does not recognize and value our expertise, then we have failed. This is a little bit of a gut punch, right? Oof. If the client does not recognize and value our expertise, we've failed. This is our fault. This is our problem. If we have not been clear about what we do, if we have not articulated our expertise clearly, then there's a problem. We need to do some introspection. Why did they get the wrong impression about us? How did we convey the wrong impression? So we really need to look at that. We failed to build true expertise, failed to demonstrate that expertise, or we failed by pursuing an opportunity that is not properly aligned with our expertise. Those are the three ways he says that we fail. We failed to build the true expertise, meaning that we didn't go out and actually secure the knowledge and the skills and the experience necessary to back up our claim. Or we failed to demonstrate it by working with existing clients, showing that work, explaining that work, basically putting it out there into the world where people could see and examine what it is that we actually do. We failed by pursuing an opportunity that's not properly aligned with our expertise. Let's say your niche are marine construction companies along the Gulf Coast, and you're talking to a proctologist or something about how you can help them in their business.
Help me help you.
There may be a lot of things that you could help them out with there, but if the client isn't properly aligned with what it is that you do, or even the niche and where you operate, then that could be another place that we fail. And it's very hard to convince somebody to go with you at a higher price with higher value services if you don't have any experience with their particular types of clients. And so that could be a problem. Let's get into paid discovery. This is where I think things can change a lot for us and how we deal with our clients. And we covered this really early on. What do we do if the situation's a little more complex and we can't really give a verbal proposal right away because there are some intricacies to the proposed project that require more research, or we want to formally diagnose the client. We really want to make sure that we could bring value to the table. And so sometimes what we propose to do could be multifaceted and a lot more complex. It could require a working relationship that goes on for years, not just a couple of weeks for a small graphic design project. Because what I'm in the business of is doing strategic branding and positioning for businesses. And so I also want to help the businesses that I work with to profit. The next quote says, "We do not begin to solve our clients' problems before we are engaged." We've covered this before in a previous show, but it's very tempting to a creative person to immediately start thinking of creative solutions. And it's very hard to keep your mouth shut. You feel like you got to get them out. If I get an idea, I'll write it down so it's not lost in the ether, right? And I put all of those ideas down while I'm talking so I can refer back to them later, but I'm in the process of just listening first to see if there's a good fit there. So if I decide there's a good fit, but I cannot give a complete verbal proposal, what I may do is give some type of ballpark. I'll say, look, what you're talking about doing could cost anywhere between 10 grand and 50 grand. it's going to depend on a couple of things of what specifically you want to accomplish and how we apply certain strategies and services and things like that. There could be a lot of social media that needs to be produced. There could be a lot of lead generation ads that need to be produced. There's ad spend. And so all of these things could add up really, really fast. So the next quote says, doctors charge for MRIs, accountants charge for audits, lawyers charge for discovery, and we charge for our diagnostic work as well, whether it's a brand audit or a discovery session. So instead of simply diagnosing for free, we charge a fee for our diagnostic services. And then with that fee, we simply deduct that from the total amount of the project if they choose to go with us. If they don't choose to go with us, then they've received a diagnostic and a proposed solution that they could take to another firm if they feel like that's what they want to do. But at least I've been paid for my time and going through the effort of really figuring out and solving what they need at that point. Brand audits, those could be really, really valuable experiences to a client because you're basically going through and analyzing what they're currently doing, what they could be doing, what they're doing now that maybe isn't working as well. And you could propose a solution to kind of tie up all the loose ends and come out with a much stronger force in a particular direction that's going to be more successful. And then a discovery session is you're just trying to figure out what's going on. You got to diagnose the problem. So either of those things you can charge for and put whatever rate that you think is fair. Could be a couple $100, could be a couple $1,000. It depends on your creative agency and who you're working with and whatever price the market will bear for what you're doing. So you can experiment around with some of those things, but generally speaking, out of a discovery process or an audit, a client should get some type of valuable, actionable information that they could take from that process so that you're fairly compensated and they receive something of value in return. The last quote here is just a simple example of how you do a verbal proposal. We propose to do X for you over Y time frame for Z price. Once we have agreement on the proposal, then we write up a contract for the signature. So that's a nice little summarized statement of everything that we've discussed up to this point. But it's a pretty simple concept. There's a lot more in this chapter. I really encourage going in and reading it to see everything that's in there because there are a lot of little details that you'll want to get to. But hopefully this is enough of an overview of information to give you some value out of these concepts and ideas that you can go and execute. Or you can buy the book and dig deeper into those things. So if you are a creative agency and you're trying to figure out how to implement some of these things, and maybe you've tried it before and it's been really hard, or you don't want to waste a bunch of time trying to figure it out on your own, if you go to consult.vector.com, and it's spelled VECTYR.com, or scan the QR code that's on your screen right here if you happen to be watching this, then you can go to a page that has a couple of options that you can choose to consult with me. And we can talk about a variety of different issues, and I can help you with things that go far beyond just this particular one. But if you want to go there and check it out, I'd be glad to work with you and give you some assistance and share with you some of the things that I've done that work. But if you want to listen to this show on the go, please check out the audio version of the show over at anchor.fm/brand or die. And if you're still here and you haven't subscribed yet, just hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. If you agree that written proposals should die, then go ahead, click that like button and submit your vote. Until next time, get out there and brand or die.
Let's do this!